Blackpool Comedy Festival. So we're celebrating comedy legends and new comedy on the scene as well. So you see on your chairs you've got a nice programme, there's lots of events today and tomorrow as well. And then at the end, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you about some more Showtown events that you might like as well. But today, we've welcomed along a dear friend of Showtown's. We have loved working with Pete for the last, 10 years. And really enjoyed his stories and his performances. And we welcomed him back today to talk about a very special canvas painted by his father. So I'm going to hand you over to Pete. Oh, before I do, sorry, this is Sam. Sam is here to sign for anybody who needs it. So he's going to carry on while Pete talks. So welcome to Pete.
Thank you very much indeed. Very good morning, everybody. Good morning. Sorry to drag you out at such an unearthly hour as this, but nevertheless, nice to see you all here. Yeah, what I'm going to talk about is this thing here. As you see, my father wrote his name in the sand, looking at the time's out. Okay, and what I'm going to talk about is this thing right in between his two names. It is in fact a canvas, 100 feet in length, which does depict 100 entertainers who had appeared in Blackpool over the 100 years. And he created it for the Blackpool centenary of 1976. I'm sure you know the history of Blackpool. It was granted a charter to become a borough in 1876, 100 years hence having the 100th anniversary. And he created this right off the top of his head. Now, it does depict 100 entertainers. So the first thing he did, of course, was make out a list. Are there 100? Well, he got to about 132 names. Yes, there are enough. The next question is, of course, who takes pride of place? Who would you start with? Perhaps there's maybe one name, arguably one name, if we can get to it very briefly. He did start it towards the end of 1975, as I remember, and there he is. In case you don't recognise him, I'll give you a clue, okay? Are you ready? He's leaning on a lamppost at the corner of the street with his little ukulele in his hand and his little stick of Blackpool rock with Mr. Wu in the background and the window cleaner's ladder. So you all know who it is. Anthony Mason. It's a very good line.
No, that's at 3 o'clock.
Of course, he made his own in Blackpool, did George Formby. He had, was it 4 homes he had altogether over the years? I know his last one was at Fairhaven. And in fact, he appeared in his very final summer season right here at the Queen's Theatre in 1960. Not that anyone knew at the time it was his final summer season. And he did a programme for the BBC in December, a one-man show, where he spoke very candidly about his life and, of course, performed the songs. And that, if I remember correctly, was televised just before Christmas in 1960. And of course, on Christmas Day itself, we heard the very sad news that his beloved wife, Beryl, now, no matter what you might have heard about Beryl Formby, I think there's no doubt she was a wonderful manager of his life. She sadly passed away after a prolonged illness. And then, at the time, seemed rather indecent haste. He suddenly announced his engagement to a school teacher from Preston called Pat Howson. Do come in.
Thanks. Okay.
Do come in. I'll start again if you like.
I don't mind. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. Sit anywhere?
Yeah.
Well, where there's a seat, of course. And yes, now where Pat Howson came from, of course, we didn't know, but they announced their engagement in the new year. A very tragically short romance because poor George Formby, whose health had been a little bit dicky over the last 10 years, he sadly gave in to a heart attack and died in March 1961. And a few months later, a bunch of enthusiasts and fans who were great admirers of George, they thought they'd form a society, and that still exists to this day. It does. They have regular meetings up and down the country. They come to the Imperial at least twice a year to play those old songs. Amazing that that society has now been in existence, 63 years. And poor George only made it until the age of 56. That's all it was, 56. But of course, his songs will never be forgotten, especially when we have entertainers like Lee and Anthony performing them at the drop of a uke. The next two people, maybe you may not recognise them too well when they come up, because they're not quite as well known as some of the others. Any day now, there they are. The chap on the left, his name was Albert Whelan. He was an Australian, and he used to wander out on the stage, stroll out on the stage, as you see him there, the top hat, the frock coat, he wore a scarf, I don't see a scarf there, and gloves, and he was whistling. If you notice, he's all puckered up there. Now, the tune he's whistling was called the Jolly Brothers. Can't whistle. And he would lay down my hat, my scarf, my gloves, and he would go into his act, which consisted of humorous stories, monologues, and impressions. And at the end of his spot, he would once more put on my hat, my scarf, pick up the gloves, and would stroll off, whistling the same tune. So half his act seemed to be entering an ecstasy. Now the chap next to him, he was a Liverpudlian by birth called Billy Bennett, and he used to recite parodies of well-known recitations. They were very popular at one time, were series, dramatic monologue reciters, and he used to do parodies of them. For instance, there was a famous recitation in those days called The Green Eye of the Little Yellow God. He did a parody. The green tie on the little yellow dog. There's a one-eyed, cock-eyed poodle to the north of Cockmadooch. There's a little yellow coolie turning green. There's a Hottentot doing who knows why and who knows what to who. And you're a better man than I am Gungadin. Absolute rubbish, but hilariously fun. Now, in the 1930s, he teamed up with Albert Whelan as a blackface double act called Alexander and Mose. They were very popular on radio, Alexander and Mose. Whether they blacked up to appear on radio, I don't know. But the gimmick was you weren't supposed to know their true identity. But word did get out, of course, and it was in fact Albert Whelan and Billy Bennett, whose billing was always almost a gentleman because of the hobnail boots he wore. The next two people coming along, I'm sure you might recognise them. The one on the left, his name was Chesney Allen, and of course the one on the right, his name was...
Flanagan.
Pardon? No.
On the right.
Reuben, Reuben Winthrop. That was his name, Reuben Winthrop. No, honestly, yeah. And they were taken on board in the, well, they teamed up as a double act in 1924, and they were taken on board by a lady who was very, very big in the theatre, in more ways than one, called Florrie Ford. She sort of took them under her wing and presented them in travelling shows. Now, Florrie Ford's real name, of course, was Flora Flanagan. So obviously Reuben thought, no, the name she's adopted is better than mine. I'll elbow my name and I'll take hers. So he quite liked her, of course. It became Flanagan and Allen. Instant success. And in 1932, they were joined by two other double acts called Nervo and Knox and Norton and Gold by a big producer in London called George Black. And he presented them in one successful review after the other, right through the 1930s, as The Crazy Gang. And they made a few films, in fact. And of course, during the war, Flanagan and Allen did a lot of sterling work entertaining not just the troops, but also the poor unfortunates who had been bombed out in the east end of London. They put on these impromptu shows for them, literally underneath the arches, and got a lot of commendation. And after the war, they were reformed, the Crazy Gang, by another producer, well known in this town, called Jack Hilton. And he presented them in one review after the other at the Victoria Palace until they all retired. Well, in fact, they didn't all retire because in 1968, the BBC had commissioned a new comedy series. And one of the writers of the comedy show, a fellow called Jimmy Perry, thought it'd be a good idea to bring Bud Flanagan along and sing the title song. So off he goes to the BBC recording studio. I believe he kept his coat on and took his hat off, listened to the tune a couple of times, tried it out once, and then recorded it. And at the end of the session, he said, thank you very much, gentlemen, best of luck with the series. And he put his hat on, went home, and he passed away. a few days later, so he never even got to hear himself sing this title song, which of course is, "Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think old England's done?" Now then, when Chesney Allen pulled out of the Crazy Gang, he had to leave due to ill health at Chesney Allen, which is a bit ironic because he outlived the rest of them. Anyway, when he did, his place was taken by this fella, a very quirky juggler called Eddie Gray. And because of his outrageous false moustache, he was always billed as Monsieur Eddie Gray. Mesdames and messieurs, how are you, all right? I'm going to juggle these three stiff-necked geese for edification. Now, he had a wicked sense of humour at Eddie Gray, and he pulled all kinds of stunts with the Crazy Gang. And I remember Arthur Askey telling a lovely story about him coming off the North Pier with Eddie. Of course, no one recognised him without the moustache. And he spotted this pillar box, which used to be in Talbot Square. So he went over to this pillar box and shouted through the slot, "Well, how did he get in there?" They were walking past and he had to fall in. Well, it can happen. Yeah, well, it will be dark in there. It's bound to be. I said, "Tell you what, you stay put, hang fire, don't move, stay where you are. I'll nip round to the fire brigade, and they might, by the time we finish, we'll have about 100 people." Well, somebody in there, are you sure? Yeah, he's saying it's cramped, but it will be. Monsieur Eddie Gray. Next we come to, just for a change, we come to a Midlands comic. His name was Billy Russell, and he appeared, as you see, as the average workman, complete with workman's hut he had with him, and what do they call it, the fire? Brazier, is it? And he would have a go at the council, he'd have a go at the government, on behalf of the working class, was his catchphrase. Now, I hadn't seen Billy Russell for years, of course, and then he suddenly turned up in one of those revivals of Sunday night at the London Palladium. You never watched those? What's left of the Palladium shows, yeah. It's done about 2 or 3 years ago. On comes Billy Russell, I couldn't believe it, I hadn't seen him for years. I mean, very old man by then, but nevertheless, exactly the same. On behalf of the working, what's going on today, eh? Anybody got a newspaper? I haven't seen one all day. Is Elizabeth Taylor still married, is she? Now, there's a busybody. And of course, in his later years, he was in big demand as a character actor in films and on television. Billy Russell, behalf of the working class. Now, of course, there were a lot of double acts around in his day. Eric and Ernie, of course, Mike and Bernie, Hope and Keane, and one of the most popular double acts was a couple called John Baker and Jack Douglas. I remember them particularly because they were resident comedians on a children's television variety show, come game show, called Cracker Jack. Anyone remember Cracker Jack? Yeah. Give that man a cabbage. Yeah. Now, they split up in the 60s and Joe Baker went to America to become a nightclub comedian, and Jack Douglas really, he took to management, but he was coaxed back onto TV by his old friend from the Red Coat days called Des O'Connor, and he appeared in Des O'Connor's show every week as his handyman, Mr. Epitidimus, he was called. Fred Epitidimus. "Mr. O'Connor, is it all right?" Funny! With this rather violent twitch, you see, which apparently he got from a band leader. We're guessing here this morning.
Eric Winston.
Eric Winston, yeah. I thought you'd know. This is a great friend of the society, ladies and gentlemen. Leslie Melville. Give Leslie a round of applause. Eric Winston. I remember Eric Winston. I don't remember the twitch.
Yes, Twitch.
Did he? Oh, well, he capitalised on it, apparently. Next to Jack, one of my favourites here. When I first saw him on stage, I thought he was the funniest man I had ever seen in my life. I was all of 6 years of age, so I knew what I was talking about. He was always billed as Lancashire's favourite Yorkshireman, which is a bit odd because he was born in Liverpool. Anyway, he moved to Barnsley when he was young, and one of his first jobs was on the railway. But as he told us, I had to give up driving trains. My eyes weren't wide enough apart to see through windows. And he moved to Morecambe, and he lived for a while in Albert Road, which is very appropriate because his name, of course, was Albert Modley. And you know, he let it go. And what intrigued me was he had a full set of drums on stage, the world's oldest set of drums, and I was learning the drums at the time. So I took a special interest in them. And of course he would convert the drums so it looked like the front of a tram. That's the way he seems to be driving the front of a tram. Complete with the peak cap and all that. Right, jump on board, we're just about to set off. Where are we going? I don't know where we're going, I just followed lines. Don't it say up front? Oh aye, we're going to Duplicate. We're going to a place called Duplicate. There's a bus over there going to a place called Private. Don't know where that is. And of course all the time uttering his famous catchphrase, hit it grand when you're daft. Albert Morley, the first comic that ever saw on stage. Now then, one day, around about, I should think it would be about 1950, this chap was walking through the Midland Hotel in Manchester, and he heard this raucous laughter. He went over to investigate, and there he found this fella regaling all these other chaps with stories of his domestic life and getting huge laughs. And when they dispersed, he went over to this fella and said, "Excuse me, who are you?" And this chap said, "Well, my name's Albert Reed, and I manufacture pork sausages and pork pies." "Why?" He said, "Well, you know, he had those people in fits of laughter." He said, "Well, they're caterers, and if you can make them laugh, they're more likely to place orders for your pork pies." "Why do you want to know?" He said, "Because I'm a BBC producer. My name's Ronnie Taylor, and I produce a radio series called Variety Fanfare. And if you can put together 6 minutes of that stuff you were telling them, I could use you in one of my shows," which he did. Big success. He was invited back the following week. And of course that led to a long-running BBC show called Such Is Life, starring Al Reed. And he appeared in Blackpool, of course, many times. I remember him at the Queen's and the Central Pier. I don't know, anybody remember Al Reed? I thought he was at his best on radio, actually. You know, you can imagine the characters, couldn't you? You can build your own costumes and sets. But he was a very popular radio comedian and on the stage. He lived in St. Anne's, actually, for a while, quite a long while. Yeah, I think he was best on radio, really. You know, with the big-headed know-all. You've all met him, haven't you? The big-headed know-all. "How do you do?" "Oh, how do you do?" "Will you give us a hand to get this stuff off the lorry?" "Yeah, of course." "Is this your house, or have you rented it?" "I bought it." "What a shame, it won't last 5 minutes." And I found it at the other end of the phone. "Yes, yeah, just a minute, yes, yeah, just a minute, yes." He wants to know what time your mother's coming. What else did he do? Oh yes, you know what it's like. You return home after a convivial evening out, and what greets you as you walk through the front door? "What time do you call this then?" That's the wife from the kitchen. "Hello, love. Don't you love me? It's all right for you, gallivanting." "Yes." "Is my dinner hot?" "Well, it should be. It's been on the back of the fire for an hour." Such is life. Life is what you make it.
What is that phrase, right monkey?
Oh, right, monkey. That's one of his phrases. Yeah, you're quite right. You're quite right, monkey. Yeah, you're quite right.
Monkey.
Yeah, as I say, I lived in St. Anne's on, I can't remember where exactly. Now then, there was a very popular comedian, had a heck of a career, called Charlie Chester. And Charlie Chester had a radio show called Stand Easy. And in fact, he did a stage version of it. It came to the Opera House. Quite a lot of people in Stand Easy, quite a big gang of people. Fred Ferrari, popular vocalist. Ken Morris, pianist and comedian. Of course, Ken Morris married Joan Savage from Blackpool. And this fellow here, Arthur Haynes, and he shot to fame in Arthur in the late 1950s when they gave him his own television series. Everybody, it seemed, tuned into the Arthur Haynes show on a Friday evening. Scripts were, by the way, written by Johnny Spate, who of course went on to create Arthur Garnet and Till Death Us Do Part. Poor Arthur, he died quite young. I think he was only in his early 50s, wasn't he? Great shame, great favourite for a short while. Now then, we come to a couple of venerable drunks now. When I say drunks, I mean stage drunks, of course, they weren't alcoholics. And the first fellow coming along, I think he was born in, that's another good one, the Palatine Hotel, by the way. Remember the Palatine? It was here, wasn't it? Where we are now. His name was Freddie Frinton. I think he was born in Hornsey or somewhere. But he shot to prominence after years on variety and concert party by coming on every week in the Arthur Haynes show as the drunk. I don't know if you remember Freddie Frinton with the bent cigarette. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the evening, sugar. Oh, go on. Good evening, Lucifer. I wonder if you could possibly direct. Don't walk away when I'm talking to you. And they used to present a wonderful sketch called Dinner for One. This eccentric old lass is throwing a dinner party for imaginary guests, and Freddie Frinton played the old retainer, the butler, and she would insist on having a drink in between each course, you know. And of course, by the end of the sketch, she was as a newt, you might say. Now, I don't know if they still do this, but German television used to run this sketch every New Year's Eve. Great tribute to a fabulous comedian. Now, the other drunk, as I say, actually, both of them were teetotal, by the way. Well, he had a reputation of being the comedian's comedian. Every other comic admired the impeccable delivery and timing of Jimmy James. He came from Stockton-on-Tees. He usually worked with a couple of stooges. One he named Hutton Conyers, after seeing him on a signpost in, where is it? See himself, North Yorkshire. And the other stooge, he called him Bretton Woods. I think, did they have a summit meeting there during the war? Leslie will know.
I don't.
He doesn't know. Oh, well, we'll say they did.
I know it's a place.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way they named the other stooge. Although he was usually referred to as our Eli, was Bretton Woods. And it's actually played by Jimmy James's nephew, also from Stockton-on-Tees. His name was Jackie, as of course they call him. Jackie Casey was his name, because Jimmy James's real name, of course, was James Casey. And Hutton Conyers in the 50s was played by Jimmy James's son, who was also called James Casey. Although the programme I have is referred to as Cass James. Are you following all this? I don't know if you remember Hutton Conyers. He's the one who used to come on in the ridiculously oversized overcoat. Ridiculously oversized with the hat pulled over his ears and a shoebox, insisting that somebody was pulling it around that he was balmy. Is it you pulling it around that I'm balmy? Jimmy James with a cigarette. No, it's not me, no. Well, is it him? I don't know, I'll ask him. Is it you pulling it around that he's balmy? I don't want any. No, he doesn't want any. Well, somebody's pulling it around that I'm balmy. Oh, did you want to keep it a secret? You've got a good case if you find out who it is. Ah, well, I've been away, you know. You've been away, but it doesn't show. Where have you been? I've been to Africa. Africa? Oh, I bet you didn't go in this coat. No, went in an aeroplane. I'll kick his legs from underneath him. What were you doing in Africa? I was the colonial secretary. Oh, that's what caused all the trouble, was it? No, very popular. When I left, they gave me a present. What would you? Very, very generous people. What did they give you as a present? 2 man-eating lions. Did they give you a few yards start as well? I fetched them all with me. I keep them in this box. Are they there now? Yeah. I thought I heard a rustling. Yeah. Go get 2 coffees. 2 cups of coffee. I'll keep him here. Are you telling him about the lions? Yes, he's got 2 lions in that box. Why would you have him? He wants to know what the... No, he's not trying to sell them. I've been to Nyasaland as well. Oh, they're nice people, the Nyasas. They give you a present. Yeah, an elephant. Did you fetch it back to England? Yeah. Where do you keep it? In the box? Don't be daft, you couldn't get an elephant in there. Of course you couldn't. I don't know what came over me there. You couldn't get an elephant in that box. There's no room. You could ask the lions to move over a bit. Want to frighten everybody? Everybody panic. No, I keep the elephant in the cage. You see, sensible fella keeps the elephant in the cage. And where do you keep the cage?
In the box.
In the box. He did that for a year, a brilliant routine. And then he stopped doing it. He stopped doing it for a while. He did something about a championships and something championships. Which is a shame because we all went along to see him, hoping he'd do that. There wasn't anybody in the country who didn't know that routine off by heart. Yeah, we still preferred him to do that. Jimmy James, a lovely chap. Now, you probably noticed there's quite a lot of comedians in this lineup. I don't know if that's occurred to you, has it? Yeah. Well, they all are. No, they all 100. My father was a great fan of comedy and comedians, so he didn't indulge himself. And of course, comedy, certainly in those days, was very much a male-orientated endeavour. There didn't seem to be all that many, we might call comical women about, did there? Comical ladies. Well, I've known a few funny women, come to think of it. I know you have, yeah. But there was always one exception, and this is definitely one of those exceptions to the male-orientated, men-only. And that is, of course, a lady who came all the way from Farnworth. She was born in Farnworth. Quite a lady, actually. You went on the stage as a young girl, and of course she rented this very agitated, like the last shoe. She was always waiting for her friend Cynthia. You know, have you seen my friend Cynthia? She's like me, very bonny. Right on cue, this Cynthia was thrown out on stage. Very, very tall she was, Cynthia. Well, as you see, she's too big to fit on there. Never say a word. She never uttered a word. Just stood there, gazing down at Hilda Baker. Where have you been? Eh? I've been stood standing here waiting for you. What did I say to you this morning? What did I say? Be soon, I said, didn't I? Be soon. Eh? I've been here ever such a long time, you know. Eh? No, I had 8 pennies when I got here. Only 2 left now. Made a few phone calls, you know. What have you been doing? Sat sitting stripping? That's not what you've been. Sat sitting stripping. Alcoholic liquor. She likes a milk stout. I mean, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, ever since, of course, well, you all know the like, yeah. Must get a second hand on this one. And Cynthia wasn't a lady at all, by the way. Always played by a very tall chap. It was a slightly bizarre act, I thought. Hilda Baker was a slightly eccentric lady. Of course, she got a new audience, of course, on television, when she played the wife of the long-suffering, in more ways than one, Judy Jewell in, what was it? Nearest and Dearest, yeah. Be soon! Now then, we come to some instrumental acts now. There was also a lot of comedy bands around in the 1950s. Perhaps you remember Dr. Crock and his crackpots, maybe? Only me. Willie does, yeah. And what about Morton Fraser's harmonica gang with little tiny Ross, and Sid Seymour and his Mad Hatters. Now, in my opinion anyway, the best of those comedy bands was led by another Sid, Sid Milward. That's in there. Now, he paid his dues. He played in the 1930s with the bands of Jack Payne, Jack Hilton, Ambrose, and in 1939 he formed his own band, which he called the Nitwits. Now, 1939 was not a very good year for starting anything, apart from wars. So he disbanded after a few months. He was called up, and while he was in the army, he joined an organisation called Stars in Battle Dress, and he reformed the Nitwits purely as a comedy band to entertain the troops. And of course, he toured around for 30 years after the war. And it was, without doubt, Sid Milward and his Nitwits was my all-time favourite act. A 10-handed act with some wonderful musicians and, of course, funny comedians. His second in command was a fellow called Wally Stewart, a Canadian, brilliant dancer and a great physical comedian as well, rather Chaplinesque. Then he had a little Charlie Rossi with the handlebar moustache, or the walrus moustache and the prop violin. Sid Flood with the trombone and the gouty foot. Now, I didn't know that Charlie Rossi and Sid Flood lived here. They lived on the South Shore. I didn't know that until it was too late, of course. And but the kingpin comic, I thought, in Sid Milward's Nitwits was Cyril Laney. He was, you've got to see him to believe it. He was a big black fella. Poor Cyril had to resort to the stock appearance, of course, of the black man with the blinking eyes and bottom lip quivering. And next, I don't quite know what he's doing amongst the comedy instrumentalists, because he was a brilliant, fantastic, eccentric dancer, of course. Obviously, Max Wall. I think that's a particularly good one of Max Wall, don't you? Caught his impish impression. But he did an act at the piano as Professor Wolofsky.
is going to play to you. Fragmentos gonna touch your toe. Where's the school? Albert, where's the school?
Now, he went off the boil a little bit in the late 1950s in Max Wall because he committed the unforgivable sin of leaving his wife and family and running off with a beauty queen, which is something he didn't do in those days, and a lot of managements wouldn't touch him. But he persevered, he prevailed, did a lot of theatre work, and his career was really revived in the 60s when he played the first half on rock concerts. Whatever the group was, he did the first half. Now, quite what the rock and rollers made of Max Wall, I don't know. But anyway, he continued to a great age. Someone else coming up now who started in the forces, he was in the Air Force though, and his name, when he comes along, was, I'll tell you now, Jimmy Edwards was his name. Very good instrumentalist was Jimmy Edwards. He tackled all kinds of instruments, trombone, beautiful style on the trombone, and as you will see, the tuba and the euphonium. Of course, he shot to fame in a radio series starting in, I think, 1948 called Take It From Here. Oh, that's better. Anybody remember that? Take it from here. Why go away when you can take it from here? Why don't you stay and maybe join in the fun? Now the show has begun. Yes, the Joy Nichols, Dick Bentley, Professor Jimmy Edwards, Wallace Heaton with the keynotes, Harry Bidwitz and his orchestra, all inviting you to take it from here. What a memory. Are you impressed?
Yes.
No? Okay. And of course he played a rather crusty, irritated schoolmaster in his act. You know, wake up at the back now. And of course he revived the schoolmaster act in a television series in the late 50s called Wacko. That was Jimmy Edwards. A lot of these comedians, of course, are so diversified in their talents, you can't really pigeonhole them, you know, they seem to be able to do anything. Like this lad here from Halifax, Roy Castle, that is, of course. And he began, really, he got going in a concert party which was held every year at the Queen's Theatre. Not the Queen's Theatre in Blackpool, but the Queen's Theatre in Cleveland. A lady called Mildred Crossley presented this annual Happiness Ahead, it was called, and Roy Castle was in it for quite a few years. Now, I would imagine that he was spotted by a famous impresario, to say the least, from the Central Pier called Peter Webster. I'm sure he must have gone up and had a nosy at this review because he put him on at the Central Pier. Where I remember seeing him, this young lad playing the trumpet and tap dancing, and he also stooged for Jimmy James, and you putting it around the Nine Barley. And he stayed with Jimmy James for 2 years, learning the business. That was Roy Castle, a lovely, lovely fellow, and as I say, multi-talented. Just annoying, these people who can do anything. Anyway, coming up now. What is what? This is what you call timing. Lack of. Yes, 3 comedians who play violins now. That seems to be a popular prop, really, with violins. Like this fella, the chap on the left. His name was Charlie Alden. He came from Liverpool. Not only a marvellous comedian and who played the violin, he was also a great fan of golf. He was a great golf fanatic. And one of his golfing heroes, I think it was an American champion golf player called Ted Ray. And Charlie Alden thought, what a great name that is. If I go into the business, I shall call myself Ted Ray. Which of course he did. Very quick mind. Very razor sharp mind he had, Ted Ray. The chap in the middle said, I don't know if he was, I can never make up my mind if he was American or Viennese or something. Anyway, his name was Vic Oliver. Like everyone else appeared in Blackpool many times. The third one is a chap who started off with his father in a double act called Wheeler and Wilson. And when his father, Wilson, retired, he continued as a solo comic called Jimmy Wheeler. Played the violin. Interspersed with a lot of these one-liners. He'd start playing the violin. a Chinaman. Now look how many there are. I've got to stop in the streets. Can you help me out, Gov? I haven't had a bite all day. So a pity. Went into a chip shop just now. I said to the fellow behind the counter, "You got any chips left?" He said, "Yes, hundreds." I said, "We'll serve you right for cooking to a penny." And as the auctioneer said to the highest bidder, "Aye, aye."
That's your lot.
Thank you. That's your lot. Jimmy Wheeler. Of course, I paid, he's around for years, wasn't he? Everywhere. We're coming now to another multi-talented individual. A nice painting there of the palace, which was where that place we don't like, Leslie.
Where?
The Leiden Albert, yeah. Round about there, wasn't it? Oh no, that was
No,
Woolworths.
the other side.
The other side, of course.
The
Where,
amusement's arcade now.
that's right, yeah. It was torn down to build Lewis's
Lewis's.
against all our better judgment, I should think. Yeah, that is Norman Wisdom, I think that's pretty obvious. Started off as a stooge, really, for David Dixon, magician, and he said, "I want you to pretend to be a stooge coming out of the audience. Go get yourself some sort of a costume." So for 30 shillings, that's £1.50, he bought himself a tight-fitting checkered suit, matching cap, as if he'd just come out of the audience. And of course that became his costume, really, forever. And in 1953, he began an association with Rank Films. And of course, J. Arthur Rank Films, I don't know if you remember them, always started off with this muscular fella striking a gong, and that's what he's going to do there. What happened after he struck the gong, of course, we don't know. But he's been hampered, in fact sabotaged, by this cheeky chap up here, who I first remember when he was on children's television as half of a double act called Mick and Montmorency. And then when they split up, he reinvented himself as a knockabout comic called Charlie Drake. He was a brilliant knockabout comic, was Charlie Drake. He really knocked himself out. Well, literally, actually, I remember one of his episodes of his show, he had to crash through this partition in a room, crash through that, then this burly actor had to pick him up and throw him out of a window. Well, what this fellow was picking up was an inert body, because he had actually concussed himself. So he's picking up his body and threw it out the window. There's an embarrassed silence, and then the credits came up. Charlie Drake, and as you see, he's peering out of the top of this very elaborate brass bass instrument played by, well, what can one say? The most, I should think, the most enigmatic person who ever appeared in Blackpool. For nearly 40 years, he was a resident at the Tower Circus, actually 39 years. And every year thinking of new gags, new routines, new music. He's incredibly musical. And of course, he was Charlie Caroli. One of the vital elements, I think, in anyone who appeared in Blackpool was Charlie Caroli. And now, around about 1959, the BBC Manchester had commissioned a series of half-hour comedy shows to be shown every night with a different star. I think Jimmy James, I remember, was in one. He played a boxing promoter. I think Hilda Baker made one, Jimmy Clitheroe. But the idea was they pick out the one which had the most potential to be enlarged into a series. And the one that picked starred Harry Worth, who began life, actually, believe it or not, as a ventriloquist. Had a couple of dollars, but then he noticed that people were laughing at Harry Worth's questions, not particularly laughing at the dollars' reactions, so they had to go. Now, and of course, he created this very confusing character. Oh, there you are. My name's Harry Worth. I don't know why, but there you are. And when you were walking around town with your mates on a Saturday morning, one of you would stand in a shop doorway. You ever do this? Right against the plate glass, and you would do that. And all your mates standing over there, they could see your reflection, so it looked like you were doing that. Well, he did that in one of his shows, TV show, just as a throwaway bit of business. And for days, everybody was saying, "Did you see Harry Worth? Did you watch it?" And it was used in the credits, as I remember. Again, a lovely chap. He was from Barnsley originally. Now we come to a series now of eccentric dancers. I don't know why no one seems to do eccentric dancing anymore. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's because dancing has become eccentric, hasn't it? So, you watch them, Strictly Clowns dancing. You watch them. What are they doing? It's all that jerking stuff. But these are some of the very best. The first one, when he eventually appears, his name was, he's on the left now, his name was Richard Hearn. Huh? Yeah, Richard Hearn. I don't think he had much to do with the, particularly to do with the sort of variety side of the business. I think he was more into sophisticated Western reviews, perhaps. But Richard Hearn created this rather crusty character called Mr. Pastry. Crusty character. Mr. Do try and concentrate, please. And his speciality was to do this version of an old-time dance called the Lancers. I don't think people do that kind of thing nowadays, do they? I don't know. But it went something like this, if I can find the volume. Yes, I can. And find the play. Here we are. It went something like this. As Denny Willis, who was a great stalwart of a show called The Folderols, was Denny Willis. And his big routine was to do this Quorn Quartet, it was called. They came on as 4 huntsmen, 4 of them. And of course he's never done it before, but he'll join in. That was a brilliant routine. It was called The Fox Has Left His Bed. The fox has left his bed, the red fox to bed, foxy yokes to the ho, tally ho, yokes to the ho, tally ho. The husband with his hunting on the green, on the fox has left his bed, the red fox to bed, foxy yokes to the ho, tally ho, he yokes to the ho, tally ho. With his wood and bacon, the husband with his hunting on the green, on the fox has left his there, the red fox, he yokes to the ho, he yokes to the ho, and on and on and on. And poor old Denny was smacked, slapped, tripped, kicked all over the stage. He was a wonderful example of split-second timing. Denny Willis. Next to him, a fellow from I think he was born in Dudley, in the West Midlands, and he went to the Mrs. Fox School of Dance in Nuneaton, and he was a very, very good eccentric dancer. Billy Dainty was his name. I'm not so sure if he ever talked to Bill, but it was certainly good value for money. Billy Dainty lived in Nuneaton, talking about eccentric dancing, one name, or two names, or three names would crop up time and time again. That was a fellow called Jack Wilson, was born in, where was he born? Wellington in 1894, and in 1920 he teamed up with another fellow called Harry Keppel, who was born in either Ireland or Liverpool, we're not sure. And they toured all over the world, and while they were in America, they were joined by a girl called Betty Knox. So then, of course, the act became Wilson, Keppel, and Betty. And everyone was crazy about anything Egyptian in the 1920s, due to, I think, Tutankhamun. And they based the whole act around these. They based the whole act around these hieroglyphics around Tutankhamun's tomb, Egyptian in various attitudes. And they performed them in the infamous sand dance. Sand dance, you had a tap tray and you sprinkle it with sand, and they do this eccentric tap dance, sand dance. Right, where do you press play? Oh dear. Wish I had some glasses or something. Is that the one? Yeah. I think it's no, we've done that. No. That's it. I don't really know, because they are mostly associated with the legitimate theatre, as we call it, the lardies. They were a famous husband and wife team on the stage. You can just see Jack Hulbert, and coming along in a second will be his wife, his good lady. Her name was Cicely Courtney. There again, a very funny lady was Cicely Courtney. She appeared in a lot of, there she is, Jack Hulbert and Cicely Courtney. Played in a lot of West End plays and reviews, one or two composed by dear Ivan Vellum. She did a marvellous song called Vitality. It's better than originality or perspicacity. Tongue-twisting song. I did actually see Cicely Courtney in a West End play called Move Over Miss Markham. One of those Ray Cooney farces, you know. Excellent cast. Who was in it? Tony Britton, Dinah Sheridan, Clarence Alexander. And she had only a smallish part as a rather dotty aunt, but she absolutely stole the play for me. Cicely Courtney. Now then, someone else who was the son of a famous music hall comedian called George Jackley, and he had three sons. I think at least two of them went into the business, including Nathaniel. Now, Nat Jackley had the longest neck of anyone I've ever seen. Seemed to go on forever, and made full use of his elongated frame, of course. He lived in St Anne's, actually. I remember on Clifton Drive in St Anne's. I used to see him knocking about there. Someone else here, who was also the son of a popular music hall comedian, a Yorkshire comic, called Dick Henderson. And his son, Dick Henderson Jr., when he was a junior, spent a lot of time in America. And that left him with a sort of a kind of a mid-Atlantic accent. Anybody remember Dickie Henderson? He did speak like that, didn't he, a little bit? Hi, ladies and gentlemen. That wasn't acquired, he really did speak like that. A wonderful, wonderful song and dance man, and a brilliant knockabout comic was Dickie Henderson. Appeared in Blackpool many, many times, usually at the North Pier. He did his wonderful impressions of pop singers, cool singers getting wrapped up in the microphone and all that kind of stuff. Dickie Henderson. Next, well, there's not much I can say about Brucey. Nice to see ya! To see ya! Of course, he was around in concert parties, in reviews and variety for years, and then he was given the plum job as compere of Sunday night at the London Palladium in 1959. He actually followed Dickie Henderson. Dickie Henderson did that for a while, and Bruce Forsyth took over. Nothing else I can say about it. You all know, of course, Lucy. We're about halfway through the canvas now, so then we put the tower in. And I'm glad he put this colour in as well. Not actually a performer as such, not really an entertainer, but he was a composer and a publisher. He had an incredible music publishing business, and he presented shows on the North Pier for a record 32 seasons. That is Lawrence Wright, is that chap there. So I'm delighted he saw fit to put him on there. There's some of the famous songs which he I Don't Like to Be Beside the Seaside, Blackpool, Blackpool by the Sea. A very shrewd man, wasn't he? Very shrewd. Shall I tell him the story? Are we time? Well, he bought a song from an American songwriter called Harry Warren. And Harry Warren wrote lots and lots. You probably don't know the name, you know all his songs. And he wrote a song called Pasadena for him in 1925. And if you want to get on YouTube, there's a lovely interview with Harry Warren playing his hits. And the interviewer said, wait a minute, he missed out Pasadena. He said, oh, that wasn't a hit. It wasn't, no, it's a hit in England, but it was never a hit in America. Now, the reason it was a hit over here is because Lawrence Wright gave him £200 for the song, and just cut to the royalties, of course, and he plugged it to death on all these song booths and outlets for his music, right along the promenade, and he made it into a hit. It's sold in its thousands. He persuaded the Savoy Orpheans to record it, and of course it was revived in the early 1960s by the Temperance Seven, of course, so it was a hit all over again. That's amazing. A song which was a flop in America, Lawrence Wright got hold of it and he made it into a hit. What about that for shrewdness? Pretty good, isn't it? It gets better. Not a lot. Right, and we turn to, yes, well, this lady, of course, was born Grace Stansfield in Rochdale in 1899. I think it was above a chip shop, wasn't it? And of course, she took singing lessons when she was quite young. She had an amazing range. What was it, 2 octaves? 3, was it? An amazing range, which meant she could sing the sentimental songs, the Nun's Chorus, Now Is the Hour, and also put on the scarf and performed these ridiculous songs about following Rochdale hounds, turning Herbert's face to the wall, taking the harp to a party. No one asked her to play, so she took the darn thing away. And I suppose the most famous song of all was one about the plant. Remember that one? That's it. Would you like to perform it? No. I will then. For years we had a aspidistra in the flower pot near the whatnot in the hole. It didn't seem to grow until our brother Joe had a notion to make it big and tall. He crossed it with an acorn from an oak tree. He planted it beside the garden wall. It shot up like a rocket till it nearly reached the sky. It's the biggest aspidistra in the world. But now when farmers and the skins fall down after the bunch of grapes, he doesn't get all fighting mad and getting into scrapes. You'll find him up the darn thing playing Tarzan of the Apes. Up the biggest aspidistra in the world. Solly. Anyway. Of course, she actually, of course, spent a lot of her life in the later years as a resident on the Isle of Capri, of course, with Boris. Not Boris Johnson. Her husband Boris. Well, I'm going to have to call it a day pretty soon. Because, well, for no other reason than it is impossible. No one could ever think of following the next fellow coming up now. Who I first saw at the Central Pier in his first summer season in 1955. I think he'd only been professional for few months in fact. And we came on holiday, we went to the Central Pier show, and this fella came on, this great lunatic came bounding on, and no one could ever follow the king of the Diddy Man, of course, Kenneth Arthur Dodd. And he stole the show for me. I mean, he wasn't top of the bill, he was halfway down, but he stole the bill for me. This great lunatic comes bounding on. By Jove! I've been on the beach all day. The things you see down there, Mrs. The cockles, the mussels, the crystal pools, the sandy bottoms. The little lass sitting next to me on the beach, she said, young man, I think it's disgusting the way these young fellas ogle all the girls on the beach. I said, I know it is. Sometimes I feel like hitting them over the head with my binoculars. She said, I think brains are more important than beauty. I said, I know. Can you imagine all the lads on the beach going, boy, get a load of those brains. I've invented a new fashion, a new beachwear fashion. Bathing suits the same colour as your hair. If you've got red hair, you wear a red bathing suit. If you've got brown hair, you wear a brown bathing suit. Don't know what happens if you're bald. And then he was such a success, he was invited back for the season the following year. Again we came on holiday to Blackpool, again we went to see the Central Pier show, and once again he stole the show. Now when I say he stole the show, I mean he stole it from Morecambe and Wise, Jimmy Clitheroe, Jimmy James the following year, Roy Castle, and a lovely ventriloquist called Dennis Spicer. And he was in Blackpool again for the following year, only this time he was at the Hippodrome in Church Street, and this time he was top in the bill. Isn't that amazing? 3 years in the business and he was top of the bill. As I say, I thought he was definitely the funniest man I'd ever seen. I was only 11 at the time. He did this marvellous manic version of The Floral Dolls. When I walked home on a summer's night, stars of heaven were shining bright, far away from the footlights blur, into the sweet and pure scented air of the quaint old Cornish town. When suddenly, hurrying down the lane, the figures I knew I saw quite plain. It's Fanny from the fish shop. I thought I heard the curious tone of the cornet clarinet, the big trombone, fiddle, cello, big bass drum, bassoon, flute, euphonium. Each one making the most of its chance, all together with a floral dance. Tiddling soul man, suck a lemon if you can, suck a lemon, suck a donkey can. I've got a nosy from a backache and throat ache. I've got a backache and the people on me. I'm dancing here, prancing there, cheeking, joking everywhere, round the town as in a trance. Hurrah for the Cornish floral dance! Well, as I say, that's as far as we can get this morning. No one could follow Dolly. So thanks ever so much for coming along. I really have enjoyed it myself, really, as you probably noticed. And maybe at some future date I can come along and unroll some more of the dance canvas. And if you feel like an applaud, now's the time. But before you do, may I point out, if you feel like an applaud, it's not for me. No, I'm just a custodian of this marvellous work of art. It's for these incredible artists, marvellous artists over the years. I think it's a fair judgment to say, I know it's an old cliche, but I think it's fair to say we shall never see the likes of any of these people ever again. They were all the time, they came forward, they did the work, and now all of them have gone. So that is why I think the dance canvas is so vital, because it does capture the image of these people as they were in their prime. So if you'd like to applaud these artists, and above all, if I say so myself, the incredible artist who put all this together, and that was my dad. His name was Roland. So let's hear it for Roland. Thank you very much for this. And of course a big round of applause for Sam. How she followed me, I don't know.
Everyone that you brought to life today through your routines and sketches, I don't know how transferring those out with people like Pete along the way. So please do enjoy the museum as well. And then if you like comedy, which I hope you do because you've enjoyed it today, we've got a whole exhibition on next door which is part of the museum visit. So Andy Hollingworth has done photographs of comedians for years. This is Sarah Milligan. But we've also got a whole host of talks as well. So we have in October a talk about black comedians. So Andy's first photograph was of Charlie Williams, and that's what set him off on photographing comedians. He was obsessed with Charlie Williams. And then you can see a beautiful photograph in the exhibition next door of Lenny Henry as well. So he talks about the development of black comedy. And then we also have, because we can't get enough of Ken Dodd, we have a wonderful talk by Andy Eastwood, who performed with Ken Dodd in over 350 shows. So he's talking about his experiences of working with Ken, which is amazing as well. And then if you want more, we've got more talks happening through summer in Showtown. We've got talks about British seaside objects and the pleasure piers, the switch on, all sorts. So we've got more information here. One more thing before I stop talking is if you've enjoyed today, if you want to give us any feedback, Beth over here in the green t-shirt has some forms. We'd love you to fill one out and tell us a little bit about your experience. But once again, shall we thank our wonderful people?
I'm on at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
The George Formby talk, yeah.
That's right. It is very venue.
And it's very, you've set the bar a bit high though. Especially the dance routines, I'm not doing any of them.
I'll go out.